Welcome back to Maximum Production, a Holstein Friesian podcast about everything to do with cows. I'm your host, Amelia, and with mating season not too far away, I'm sure that you're all making the right decisions on where to go. And so we thought we would cover off the idea of dairy beef. So joining me today is Bob Thomson, a farm systems consultant with AgFirst. Hey, Bob.
Good morning, Amelia.
Morning. So hopefully Bob can give you guys a little bit more of an idea on where to take using dairy beef and where the benefits are. So Bob, why don't you give us a bit of information about yourself and tell us how you got to where you are today?
Okay, so I'm old. I've been around for 50 years in extension and consultancy, and I started life with the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries as a farm advisor. And back in the day when we had a lot of research, our job was to get that research out to farmers. And so there was a requirement to understand the science and the application of that down on the farm. So I spent the first years of my working life in this field doing just that. Started life down in Hawke's Bay, then went up to Poverty Bay, and then up to Northland. I've spent most of my working life in Northland, although now I reside down in the Waikato. I've had a strong interest in beef and sheep right through my career, so I've specialised not only in farm systems but in sheep and beef, and particularly beef. And being in Northland, which is a cattle dominant area, you get plenty of practice. So that's the quick version of my background. I spent most of my working life helping farmers make more money. Would be the simple way of looking at it.
That's what they want, is to make more money. So I
Right.
feel like that's a good job to be in.
1 out of 10 farmers either want to make more money or they want to make the same amount of money with a system that's easier to work than the current one. So, yeah.
And so you've done a lot of work on dairy beef over the last few years. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about what dairy beef is?
Yes. So, as the name suggests, it's beef over dairy in actual fact. So, if we go back, I just want to quickly reflect on some of my background experience. So, back in the late 70s, early 80s, there was a massive breed evaluation program in New Zealand when New Zealand used to invest heavily in research and development. And this research looked at all of the different breeds that were available then. From memory, there was about 15 different breeds. This is when the European breeds came into New Zealand. Although the matings back then were over Angus and traditional cows, dairy breeds were used over beef in those trials too. And what was shown in those trials, in fact, that some of the best breeding cows we could have in New Zealand wouldn't be traditional. They'd actually be dairy beef. So that spiked my interest in dairy beef way back then. There were other trials that went on looking at beef over dairy back in those years too. And again, we learned that there were some real useful opportunities there for beef finishers to pick up on dairy beef. I should hasten to add too that there are a lot of myths around dairy beef. There's been this idea that dairy beef is inferior to traditional beef over beef. That is not the case. Science proves that, and so does practice. And so I guess our audience here today, Amelia, will be dairy farmers knowing that that is a myth, that dairy beef is not inferior to traditional beef. And there are still people around today, though, that will promote that idea. But let me tell you, there is a heap of practical experience to back up the science to prove that dairy beef is as good or better than traditional beef.
And I think that's evident in the progeny test program that you guys were running, where you were looking at the growth patterns of those progeny from the dairy beef. Do you want to give us a bit more of an explanation around that?
Yeah, well, that's not so much a comparison between traditional beef and dairy beef, but what it is a comparison of all of the bull breeds that are available, or beef breeds that are available to dairy farmers, to be tested one against another. So it's a multi-breed analysis. And this goes back 10 years now. We're just coming into our 10th year. And this is a situation where we have between 700 and 800 dairy cows, mostly crossbred dairy cows, I should mention. But what the situation was, we invited bull breeders to enter their bulls on the basis that they felt they had something really to offer, the dairy beef finisher. And so we representatively mated bulls, and we've over 200 of them now, from 18 different breeds represented in the progeny test. So this is a multi-breed evaluation looking at differences between beef breeds and bulls within breed. How good are they, and what do we realise as a result of this?
So I guess if we take it back a little bit, from a dairy farmer's point of view, what are the benefits of using beef over the dairy cows?
I think, I've been around long enough to know that there's been an expectation from beef finishers that dairy farmers would use whatever bull they think would be useful to generate dairy beef for their own advantage. But what I want to say about the dairy beef progeny test, it measures everything that's important to a dairy farmer and everything that's important to a beef finisher. So, for example, we can go right back. So calving ease, it would be front of mind for many dairy farmers. I mean, if I use this beef bull, will I get an easy calving? Will I get big and difficult calves at birth, or will they be easy? So we've proven all of the bulls in the dairy beef progeny test to be easy calving. We measure everything, and I mean everything. So birth weight, how many days does it take for the size progeny to get to weaning weight? Now, obviously, we're comparing one sire against the other, and there's over 200 of them. And so we've got all that really cool information for a dairy farmer. And then over and above that, once those calves are weaned, well, we record all of their growth through to finish, and then carcass weight, all the carcass quality measures as well. It's a very comprehensive progeny test.
So that tells us a lot more about the idea of using the dairy beef. And you've given us that outline around the calving ease. But what about the actual progeny? The difference between using a Jersey bull over your tail end or a beef bull. And this could be just some semen that you've selected through LIC or CMEX of a bull that's got traits that you want to aim for, versus using a run with Jersey bull. Where are your benefits there for a farmer? Think about from a dairy farmer's point of view.
So the first point to make is that a dairy farmer can use bulls that have been identified through the dairy beef progeny test and know that they'll be safe to use because they've proven easy calvings. They'll also know that they're not going to extend the length of gestation. They'll have that information available to them. They'll know what each bull's effect is going to be on gestation length. And of course, from a dairy farmer's point of view, it's obvious, isn't it? That's days in milk. So if you have a long gestation, you've got less days in milk and so forth and so on. So we've got all that sort of stuff sorted. Now, probably the benchmark in the beef world around the capacity and dairy beef animals' capacity to grow would be the Frisian bull calf. And so I've done a lot of modelling work looking at what would happen if you brought Frisian bull calves onto your farm and finished them. And so I can model that on a real farm, and then I can compare that with other breeds and what have you, and then look at the value of a calf at four days of age or a week of age or whatever day you choose to pick it up to wean it for dairy beef. And I can look at what would you pay for a calf. And that work showed that if you, in the best case scenario, you paid $500 for a 100 kilo Frisian bull calf, what would you pay then for one that was by an inferior beef bull? What would you pay for one that was sired by a Jersey bull? And so all I can say, perhaps in the podcast, is that you would be paying people to take your calves away for those lower category calves, and a substantial amount of money. And whilst you'd be paying positive $500 for a Frisian bull calf, for the low category calves, so if we think of the Frisian bull calf as category A, if we took a category C or D calf, you'll be paying people $400 or $500 to take them away to be able to make the same amount of money as you would have had you farmed the Frisian bull calves. If we look at the capacity for calves to grow and finish, one of our benchmarks is a Frisian bull. They grow for a whole lot of different reasons, mostly because there's a lot of growth in Friesian, as your audience will know, and So they are preferred by bull finishers as an option. That's why we see so many black and white bulls out being finished on beef farms. Yes.
Yep.
So if we were to compare against that, a Friesian cow mated to an average beef bull, Angus or a Hereford or an average anything, an average bull as determined through the dairy beef progeny test, then we would want to pay less for that because they will grow at a slower rate when they finish than would a Friesian bull. So it's like an industry benchmark. The way in which we can get a better growth calf is by going to the dairy beef progeny test and taking the best bulls that are available for growth and carcass and mating them over those same Friesian cows that generated the Friesian bull calf, but this time generating a dairy beef calf. Now we've got something that will grow faster than a Friesian and therefore be able to generate more money for a beef finisher. I just want to underscore the point that in our current beef grading and payment system, a large component of value is associated with an animal's capacity and ability to grow. Friesians have that, and you can build off the back of that by going to some of the better bulls that are available in the dairy beef progeny test.
So the dairy beef progeny test scheme doesn't have all AB company bulls that are out there. The likes of CMEX don't have bulls that are in that progeny test at the moment. I know that any company can put them in. Is it saying that those bulls that CMEX has that are proven to be some of these top bulls overseas that they can't be just as good here in New Zealand? Or is it an opportunity for people to just pay attention to what the bulls are that you're selecting?
Well, you open up a really good subject area, and I think this is where the rubber meets the road for a dairy farmer as he's thinking about what beef type he uses over his dairy cows. So let's think about that for a minute. The best bulls are proven. This is my opinion. They're proven and you know what they're going to deliver. The dairy beef progeny test is the only place you can go and get information about bulls that are proven. And I mean proven between breeds and within breed. And I'll make the point while we're in the middle of this discussion to say that the top 5 bulls in the dairy beef progeny test for carcass weight, which is what a beef finisher is paid for, assuming everything else is okay, from a dairy farmer's perspective around calving ease, gestation length, all those sorts of things. If we think about that, the top 4 bulls on carcass weight, top 5 bulls in fact on carcass weight, are 5 different breeds. And it's really important to register that. If we look through those results, there's probably more difference within the breeds than there are between them. And so people get hung up on breed X is better than breed Y, etc., etc. That's not the case. Now, where does the farmer then find these bulls? Well, I've just been through that process in our Dairy Beef Partnership Program where we're looking at recommending bulls to dairy farmers to use. And when we go and look at the top bulls and we say, where are they? Where do I get semen from? You find that it's hard to find them. So some of them are there and ranked and available. You rightly point out. And I guess it's fair to say, and this is not a criticism, it's just how it's happened with Beef and Lamb Genetics. They chose to partner with LIC. So LIC have had the front running on the bulls. That's now changed. From this year onwards, there is no connection with any of the semen companies, so it's open to all. And I know from the nominations of bulls that have gone in this year that there's strong interest from most all of the semen companies, certainly those that are selling beef semen, and getting
That's
bulls. Great. It is so good. And I guess if there's a criticism of the dairy beef progeny test, it's just that it's been a little exclusive and LIC have had a front running on that. That's not the case now. We'll see this open up and there'll be much more opportunity. Now, so we've got proven bulls through progeny testing, or we've got younger bulls. And so I need to make the point that the proven bulls are in a straw, they're not on the hoof. So you have to have an AI program. So if you've got wearables and some way of making your AI an easy process on your phone, well, you're encouraged to do that because it does make a huge difference at an extremely busy time of the year. We understand that fully. So,
unfortunately, it doesn't work for everybody, though.
It doesn't work for everybody, that's true. So, yeah, that's that story. So, but if you were to buy a bull on the hoof, In New Zealand, we have a beef performance recording program called Breed Plan, and you can buy bulls that are fully recorded on Breed Plan. So these are beef bull breeders selling bulls. Unfortunately, the best bulls for the highest breeding values are high price bulls, and it's typically those sales are $7,000 and $8,000 average, and so that's quite a lot of money to pay, and it's making AI look pretty attractive if you do the arithmetic.
Yes, that does actually almost make it worthwhile doing your AI
It does. In fact,
if
there's
you
a
have
business
that.
case sits right there for AI around that, because otherwise we're pushed into buying those lower estimated breeding value bulls. And whilst breeding values work, they are estimated and they have accuracy figures around the 60% level. And so, on average, yes, you get a good result according to what the breeding value says, but there's variation around that. So, you have the chance that you might get a bull that's at the lower end or upper end of gestation or birth or calving or whatever the case may be. So, hence us recommending that you think about using proven bulls. And our job is to make sure that the beef breeders are getting new generation bulls in and performance, progeny tested year on year.
And I guess a lot of the people that are using run with bulls rather than AI tend to be people that are using them over the heifers. You've made it pretty clear that calving ease is something that isn't a big issue with the beef because you can get very high calving ease bulls. Is it something that people should be worried about when they're using them over their heifers? Or you just made the comment about those breeding values might not be as accurate. Is it something that people need to be wary of? Or are there certain beef breeds that might be better suited to be using over the heifers?
So there are plenty of farmers out there that are using natural bulls over heifers and getting away with it. They won't know the gestation length and all those sorts of things, and they will be taking a risk if the bull is unproven. Some have been taking those risks for a long time and it's been working for them, and that's fully accepted. So I guess the point is, how valuable are the calves, the dairy beef calves from those heifers? And so if I'm a beef finisher and I'm looking at that and I'm thinking to myself, but I can actually get much better dairy beef with much higher growth rates by getting the sons and daughters from these dairy beef progeny test proven bulls that have these very high growth rates, carcass weights. That's where I should be going. And so I've got quite a big compromise if I'm to pick up the dairy beef from the heifers. So therein lies the challenge. So to get an easy calving from a heifer, you are very thoughtful about growth. So the higher the growth in a normal context, the higher the birth weight will be. And then the more likely you are to have a difficult calving. So what we tend to do when we buy beef bulls to go over heifers, we're thinking and concentrating in on calving ease as a big deal item. And in the process, we compromise on growth rate of the offspring. And then some dairy farmers are saying, well, 1 minute, my heifers have my very best genetics, so I'm going to think about going AI and putting dairy over my heifers. Others may think I will put dairy over my best of my heifers, and I might put beef over the rest. And what we have in the dairy beef progeny test is we've identified some bulls, we call them curve benders. They have really easy calving, small birth weights, and short gestations, but they have excellent post-birth growth rate. They're not up in the top 20, but they're very close. So, you can't have it always, but we do have these curve bender bulls, which identify through progeny testing. So some dairy farmers are considering using those sorts of bulls, beef bulls.
Is there a certain breed of beef bull that does tend to have, or is just known as having like lower birth weights, not thinking about compromising growth or anything like that, but that lower birth weight to actually make it easier for heifers? Is there a specific breed, or is it just specifically picking for those calving ease bulls?
Angus is more likely to offer us that opportunity, but what we've learnt through the dairy beef progeny test that there are bulls, not across every breed, but that's where you should go and get that type of information, because there are bulls of many breeds that are for the sorts of things we're looking for, that easy calving, shorter gestation, but good post-birth growth.
And also from a beef finisher point of view, is there specific breeds that I know for a while there, Speckle Park was the thing and everyone was using it. I know that some people had a great opportunity to sell and other people didn't? Is there certain beef breeds that are harder to sell or that dairy farmers should not use as much of versus more common breeds of beef? I know Charolais is really good over dairy, and so is Angus and Hereford, but people like these minor breeds as well. So are there certain ones that they maybe should reconsider buying large amounts of semen from when you're looking at your sales going forward?
It's a really good question. I think probably what we need to see with the minor breeds is that they get their bulls progeny tested. I've been challenged by many of them to say, why aren't you promoting my breed? Because it's got the best gestation, it's got the easiest calving, it's got the best beef, etc., etc. Well, if that's the case, put the bull into the dairy beef progeny test and prove that that's the case. And then it can be recommended to farmers on that basis. I guess the other thing, though, which is a major consideration, is coat colour. And this is where some breeds, have really differentiated themselves against others. And I mean, probably the most obvious is Hereford with the white face. And that is an industry standard. But again, there's Herefords and Herefords. Some of our worst and best bulls are Herefords. It's the same with any breed. They're represented across the spectrum. And so, again, the challenge is to have your bulls proven. And then you can think about the colour coding. So we've got a Charolais, for example. That's right in that top grouping. We've got a Simmental. We've got an Angus. We've got a Hereford. Then we've got a Stabiliser, all in that top 5. And so you can take your pick. And one of the things that they do in the dairy beef progeny test is they've been assembling the progeny groups and looking at the colour coding at the bulls. How does he mark his calves? And so, we've got some interesting information along those lines as well. So, there's more than just carcass weight. There's some of these handy practical things around coat colour too, and that information is available.
Do you also think it's important for farmers to find their buyers before they start choosing which bulls specifically that they're using?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we've just set up the Dairy Beef Partnership Program to demonstrate just that. Because I think it's been frustrating for many dairy farmers in that, they might have used better beef bulls and then they bring their calves to sale. And nobody seems to want to differentiate them away from the also ran calves, And it's so important, I think, in this day and age, and especially with the challenges that lie ahead of us, that we look to establish relationships between beef finishers and dairy farmers. I mean, there are already some of these in the industry, of course, and some of our listeners will probably already be enjoying the advantage of that, especially your listeners being, farmers of Friesian cattle, because they have an advantage in the market, as we all know. What's the advantage? They grow. That's the advantage. And so when you splice other breeds in against that, then you can either enhance that or you can pull that growth rate advantage back. And that's why I talk about the dairy beef progeny test as a way of getting proven bulls into your herd. So partnerships are essential, in my opinion, and we are going to see more and more of those built as time goes on, because we have the challenge with our surplus calves and finding a useful life for them. So I contend that the best situations are those whereby the beef finisher has a relationship, a positive contractual relationship with a dairy farmer, and he commits to buying those calves. No matter what, he commits to buy them. They just have to be of a certain health standard and physical standard at time of purchase, the logical, sensible stuff around that, and the deal's done. Heifers and steers, they're purchased and they're finished. And it's about making sure that we have the right value. One of the things that destroys these good relationships is the spikes we get in price, like this year. We're hearing all these fancy prices for 4-day-old calves. And unfortunately, they only relate to some of the calves, not all of the calves. And when we have a proper business relationship, we have commitments to purchase all of the calves, not some of them. So we need to think about more realistic pricing around calves. And I guess your listeners will be saying, of course you're saying that, Bob, because you're on the side of the beef finisher. I just want to make the point that I'm on the side of the good business relationship, and it has to be win-win. And there's no win when you pay too much money when you're a beef finisher. What it does is just strip your margin away. And then you're not back there buying those calves again because you took a hiding when you purchased those. So you've got to think about enduring relationships, the ones that are going to last into the future. They happen every year, not some years. And there has to be a realistic calf price when we get into those sorts of situations. One big message for today will be just that. These enduring relationships are based on sensible pricing around calves and a commitment, not one that says, oh, I'll take them this year and I won't take them next year. It's about, I'll take them every year because I really value these calves because they actually make a difference when I get them home and I finish them at my place.
And I think that actually comes down to how farmers actually treat those calves from the moment they come off the mum as well, making sure that they're fed the same as you're feeding your keepers, making sure they're getting good quality colostrum. I know with my brother, his beef buyer normally comes once a week. So whatever day it is, if it's a Thursday or something like that, the animals are treated exactly the same.
Yeah.
They get that same colostrum, they get that same starter. They're making sure that regardless of everything, navels are cleaned properly, they're kept in tidy pens and everything like that. I think that's important for your beef animals that you're selling just as much as it's important for your keepers, because if you give them the best start, then when they get to going on a truck and they're going through that shifting process, which we've all seen in the past can affect animals in a short amount of time. So if you're making sure that they've had 4 really good days of start, they'll move well and then they'll continue to feed them well because they want them to grow well.
You're 100% right. And that has to be right for all the reasons that we all know, but sometimes shortcut. And if you shortcut that in the calf, you know it's going to be troublesome, don't you? Through the next phase as we try to get it through to a winning weight. So that's a key part of it. And there's quite a few beef farmers that have been burnt with those sorts of calves because they get them home and, they're trouble. So I think that's another really important point to think of. And as you say, in those first 4 days, that period, making sure they've got the colostrum and all that sort of stuff, setting them up for life is really important. And again, this is where these relationships work. So if I'm a beef finisher and I've got an agreement with you as a dairy farmer, well, you are going to ensure that as a dairy farmer that those sorts of things are done. And then I know when I buy those calves, they're going to be robust, yes, and they're going to be healthy, they have the best start. And then I can carry that process on through to over the summer and through to the first winter.
So if you are an unlucky farmer that isn't able to get a deal going with a beef finisher and you're someone that does have to take them to sale yards, you've done the right thing. You've chosen your bulls from that list of progeny tests proven bulls, and your calves are looking great, but you get there and you're finding that you're not quite getting the right money, the money you think you should be getting. This discussion came up when I heard Bob talk at our farm, because a lot of the dairy farmers didn't actually realise that they have this information at their fingertips. From a farmer's point of view, taking animals to those sales is making sure their records are correct. So if you have used AI bulls, that is in your records, so you can print off herd profiles that show what the calf is by. So then if you do have beef finishers there that are just trying to get a few extra animals because their contracts didn't supply them enough, that they can actually see those animals that you've brought and realise that they are out of good bulls, that the bulls that you've used are registered bulls and things like this, because that can make a huge difference to any beef buyer.
You're right. So
going forward.
You do need to make sure the agent understands what you have on offer. So that's a really good point. And most of them will understand about breeding values, estimated breeding values. If the dairy farmer is promoting that, it should make a difference at point of sale. Another thing is that the top bull in the dairy beef progeny test happens to be a Charolais, and some of those calves are getting into the yards, and they say, "Oh, let's buy such and such a sire." And there's a little bit of knowledge building up on the grapevine at the sale yards about this bull, Jerry. The Jerry calves. Wow. And there's been some crazy prices paid for those calves. So it can make a difference when people are aware that these are extraordinary calves.
But even just having a list available of the bulls that you used. So if you use three different Charolais bulls or something like that, or three different Angus bulls, they are one of these. And then if they want to DNA them to get more accurate, they can. If it's in your herd profile, that you use that bull over that cow, this is the progeny of it. It's very easy for a farmer to do that. Your minder has it all available for you, and LIC can walk you through how to pull that profile if you don't know how to do it yourself. There are options out there for you to make sure that the calves that you're putting forward, you are able to get the best price for them.
It all is contingent on having an EID, like a number, and being able to rate that number back to the sire and the dam. Yes, it's contingent on that. I'll make one further point at the moment, and this is not a criticism of a breed, but Charolais is really popular, but not all Charolais are good. I'll just make that point. Good.
My brother had one beautiful, tiny little Charolais calf born right at the start of this season. He was so adorable. So
might be adorable, but is he going to grow?
He was growing. He was a feeder.
I'm just making the point that not all bulls, not all Charolais grow the same. That's what we've proven in the dairy beef progeny test. More difference within the breed than between them. So beware as a buyer that, just because something's popular at the moment doesn't mean to say it's good.
So I think more and more dairy farmers are looking at the option of dairy beef for the aspect of trying to reduce bobby calf numbers, trying to make their farm a lot greener and make every calf valuable. That's the idea of a dairy farmer these days, is to try and really bring down those numbers that are going to just be culled at 4 days old and actually growing on. And we're lucky that as Holstein breeders, we have that benefit that Holsteins grow really well, regardless of whether it is Holstein or Holstein beef. So we are really lucky. So thanks, Bob, for giving us all this information today. Do you have a favourite beef breed?
Yes, I do. The best one.
That's not an answer.
Any of those bulls that are up on that top, in that top 20 group, that provide all the advantages that a dairy farmer is looking for, and the advantages. So not all the bulls in that top carcass weight group have all of the things that a dairy farmer wants. So you just need to sift through. That's why we're wanting to recommend bulls to dairy farmers on the basis that they're win-win, great for dairy farmers and great for beef finishers. And so on that top 20 list, which is available on the Beef and Lamb Genetics website, you will find those bulls. And then you can go looking for which one of them is available, which semen company. But encourage you to go for the proven bulls rather than take a guess on another.
I'll put the link to that website in our show notes. I'll also include a link to the AgFirst website. So if you do have more questions for Bob, you can get in contact with him. And also if you want to inquire more about the beef finisher dairy partnership that they have been developing, that you can get in contact with Bob regarding that as well. So everything around that will be available in our show notes, as always, with our contacts as well. But thank you so much, Bob, for your time today. It's been greatly informative, and I'm hoping that our listeners will take something away from this and how they pick their bulls for the coming mating season, and make sure they're picking the right bulls to get the right prices out of those calves in the future.
Oh, well, happy calving and trust things go well for the coming year. And yes, we are looking for more farmers for our Dairy Beef Partnership Program. We're looking for a couple more farmers. So if there's a couple of you out there that would be keen to be part of that, it'd be great to have you on board. Thank you.
As always, guys, we will be back next month with a new topic and a new guest. We hope that you guys learned a lot today. I know I did. If you've got any questions or queries for me, you can get in contact with us through our Facebook page, Instagram, or through our website, or linked in our show notes. And otherwise, I will see you all next month. Happy calving. Bye.